Good evening, everybody. I hope we're doing fantastically well on this Monday evening. As I say, it's Monday evening after the Game Week 38 deadline has just passed us yesterday, and we've got a quick one going on to Game Week 37 straight away, which starts tomorrow evening. So, trying to get you a quick video in here to give you the lowdown to get your teams sorted for tomorrow tea time. So, as I said, we're going to try to get a quick one in here, it's a quick turnaround. So, I'm not going to try take too long on it, so you guys have got times to look at the video and get through it and hopefully change your teams for the better going forward. So, as we mentioned every time, socials on the stream, on the screen now, should I say, but we do stream on Twitch and also check us out on Twitter. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments also, and we'll get into it. So, this game week 37, as we're in, one game week to go after this, we will have a full set of fixtures. So we've got all 10 fixtures, no doubles, no blanks, or anything to deal with this game week. So it's just a straight shootout who you think's going to do it well in one game. So I'll run down the fixtures and give you my opinion on the assets, etc. for these. So firstly, we've got Man United against Fulham, which I'll be backing United 100% here because I feel that they're going to play their full team in this game because Tuesday they're playing Fulham, Sunday I believe I can't recall who they're playing on Sunday. I think it might be actually Wolves. But the last game of the season, there's no value in that fixture for them at all because they've got the Europa League final 3 days after that game. So I expect the full team to play in this game and then to be a lot of rotation and resting for that last game. So I'd be all in on United assets if you've got them. You haven't got Bruno at this stage. He's just a necessity for this week. So I'd look to have him in this game week, and necessarily you don't need him for the last week. But if you haven't got Bruno in your team this week, you're going to be hiding behind the sofa in fear of something happening. You've also got the cheap alternatives of Rashford and Greenwood. I do quite like Greenwood at the minute. I think he's one of United's best attackers. So him being in that cheaper price range, I think he's just over 7 million now, is a good shout to go for, especially if you want to double up on their attack. And like Shaw and Wan-Bissaka are very good bets at the defence as well. But like I said, if you don't already have them in the team, I wouldn't make it an essential transfer because I don't expect the full team to play in the last fixture. But I'd definitely go in United in this fixture, and Bruno's a very strong captaincy choice there as well. Fulham I wouldn't be mentioning really much in that fixture because they're just gone and relegated. So then Southampton against Leeds, which I think will be a really exciting game. Well, I'm hoping for at least. Leeds tends to be an exciting game, and kind of Danny Ings, Che Adams seem to be in a bit of form as well. So I could see a decent scoring game like 2-2. Either team could scrape it 2-1 or 3-2. So Adams, I don't think I'd be going for Southampton defenders, but a punt on an Adams or an Ings would be a decent shout. And Leeds have decent two fixtures, this fixture and next fixture. So if you're looking for a cheap replacement, for example, a Jota in midfield, like Harrison and Rafinha are really good bets to go for there. Like I said, the fixture next week is good, and you kind of know the Leeds team will stay the same every fixture, unlike the United that we mentioned above. I've gone slightly off Bamford at the minute, and I don't think I'd recommend him as a first choice striker, but if you need a striker, you could go for Bamford, but I prefer the midfield options at the minute, Harrison or Rafinha. But also, we've still got Dallas at the back, which is always a fair shout because you know you can get an attack in return as soon as they play in midfield. But I'd be more going for Leeds assets because they're a better asset for both fixtures. But Southampton a punt for the game week is not a bad shout either. Brighton against Man City, I'm kind of trying to avoid totally. If you want to take a punt on the Man City asset, and you can beat Pep Roulette, fair play to you. But at this stage of the season, I just want players who are definitely going to play, especially if you've got any injuries. For example, I've got Jota and Maguire injured, and I feel like I'm not in a position to take that gamble on like Amares to start and do well. But there is a huge upside, as we saw with Ferran Torres. So if you want to take that risk, go for it. But my strategy would be more to make sure you've got players who are going to feature at this stage. And the Pep Roulette, you can get really stung with it, especially if they come on as a sub and just get a 1 point in the final 10 minutes. So I'd be looking elsewhere in that sense, especially because a lot of the City assets are quite high value players as well, unless you're going for like a Foden. But I'd be avoiding that fixture entirely because Brighton could actually go for it as well. City haven't got no reason to go for the game. They've already won the league. So that's a key bit to kind of focus on when you're looking at these fixtures. Who's still got something to play for? You can argue United haven't got anything to play for, but they need to get in good form ready for the Europa League. So they want to put in a good performance in that game I mentioned earlier. But then we've moved to Chelsea against Leicester, which I think will be the most tight. And as I talked about teams who've got something to play for, it's going to be a very tense game because both of these teams are fighting for Champions League. Basically, whoever wins this game is basically guaranteed Champions League football. So it's going to be a very tense one. I don't expect many goals at all. I expect it to be very much like the FA Cup final where the odd goal could nick it. So for that reason, I'm not prioritising getting any of these assets in for this game. Especially Leicester, they have Spurs next game week as well, so it's not very favourable. Chelsea's a bit more easy, but I still wouldn't be looking at their assets. If you've got the odd defender, maybe like a Rudiger or someone, I wouldn't mind you playing them just because I said there won't be many goals. So it's not the worst option to be playing if you need to in that game, but really for this game week, avoiding that. I'd even consider taking a Leicester or two player out and just stick with one if you had a few in there already. But then we moved to Everton against Wolves. So Everton, before the Sheffield United fixture, I would have been saying Everton, good bet here. DCL, Digne, Sigurdsson, Richarlison, good bets here. But they're just not consistent and you just don't know what's going to come from them at the minute. So I wouldn't be putting my eggs into that basket if you've already, well, if you've got them in the team, I'd consider playing them, but I wouldn't. It's not a priority transfer to bringing in there. I'd be saying that Leeds, even Southampton, would be better priority to be going for there. And Wolves, they can do pretty well, depending on which Wolves turn up. Will give you a game most of the time as well. So if you've got like a Digne, Calvert-Lewin, I'd be playing them. Depending on that, you have the substitute choices, but I still think Everton can score a few there. I'd probably say 2-1 Everton, but you never guarantee to Everton. It's not like you're betting on a Liverpool, a Tottenham, where you have a bit more confidence that you could get attacking returns. But obviously, any game can go like that, but especially that Sheffield United result doesn't give you confidence in their FPL assets. Wolves side, I wouldn't be looking at many of them. Maybe if you've got a defender in there, play them, but high risk strategy that one. So moving on to Newcastle Sheffield United. Whenever a team's playing Sheffield United, I always recommend their assets. If Callum Wilson was 100% fit, because I think he picked up a new injury in the last few games, I would be picking him straight away because he's got Sheffield United. I think he's got a decent fixture next week as well. So he was my kind of striker for the last 2 game weeks that I was going to put in there, probably instead of Iheanacho, but that's kind of fallen down now. If you want to be differential, go for a Joelinton or a Willock, but there's not a lot of confidence in there. But if you're chasing in the mini league, and that's the kind of thing you need to do, which I probably do need to do as well, he's not the worst punt. Like a Willock, it depends if he starts. Joelinton seems to be playing quite a bit, to be fair, under Bruce. I feel like there's goals in that game for Newcastle. They did score 3 against City, surprisingly. So it's not a bad shout for a little punt on there if you just need to. If you want to go down from a Jota or someone just to mix it up for a week or two, why not? At the end of the season, you've got to take these kind of risks sometimes to push your rank, otherwise you're just going to be at a stagnant pace. So I don't mind the Newcastle 2 fixtures we've got. Sheffield United I'll be avoiding, even though they did nick a 1-0 against Everton. Everton really should have scored in that game, so I'm not backing them to do well in that one, Sheffield United. So moving on to Spurs, again, Kane, I think everyone will have Kane or Son at this point. Good sticking with them. If you really fancy them in this game against Villa, then bring a Bale in. But they also have Leicester in the last fixture. So if you've got Spurs players similar to, as I said, to a few other fixtures, I'd definitely be playing them. This is a decent fixture. Probably if you were choosing between the Spurs and Everton players, I'd be going for Spurs because I fancied them against Villa. I'm not really convinced by Villa in the second half of the season. They look pretty vulnerable. I think Mings might be out as well. Without Grealish, it should just look a completely different side. So I wouldn't be backing them to do very well. It could be a 2-0, a 3-1 to Spurs there. So I'd be on Kane and Son if you're not already. I wouldn't necessarily be transferring in another asset because I think there's other priorities. For example, when we get down to the Liverpool game, you might have wishes to get more Liverpool assets in there. especially if you've got a Jota out, you might be wanting to utilise those free Liverpool assets because they arguably have got the most to play for of any team outside of that Chelsea-Leicester game. So should be going full for it. While we're on the Liverpool game, we'll talk about it. So in my mind, Salah and Trent are the most obvious picks for Liverpool at the minute, especially now Jota's injured and he'll be out for the season, from what I'm hearing. So if you've got Jota, it's the most logical one to be taking him out of your midfield if you need to get them out. For example, like me, I've got Maguire as well, so I need to get really one or two of them out of there. So it gives you a slight issue because Jota offered great value, which helped you there. Firmino, you can't be guaranteed returns, but I do also like Phillips in defence, who's a decent value pick. I think he's only 4.1 million still. He did manage to get assists in the United game as well. And you think Liverpool could hopefully get a clean sheet in at least one of the last two games, because as I've said for the last few weeks, Liverpool's last like 5 or 6 games at the end of the season are probably one of the easiest runs you could have had, minus United game, but they never had anything to play for either. And Burnley can put up a fight in this game, but as we've seen, Liverpool need to win, so they need to go all out, even if it means putting Alisson up front. So it should. I think Burnley will give them a good game, but I can see it ending up like a 3-1 to Liverpool, even like 2-0. They could get a clean sheet in this game. Depends what Burnley turns up. We saw Burnley in the last game get thrashed, but I feel like Wood and Vitra could give them a decent run for their money, especially with inexperienced centre backs in there. But like I said, if you haven't got free Liverpool assets, you need to be looking to get them in, because you guaranteed they're going to play the full strength team in the last 2 games because they have to. Unless for some reason they totally bottle this Burnley game and they throw out some kids in the last fixture, which isn't going to be likely, because they'll still probably have a chance of catching Chelsea or Leicester if they slip up. So yeah, definitely prioritise those Liverpool assets if you've got them. So far, Liverpool, Leeds, and then maybe if you want differential, you've got to go for another Spurs asset or even a Newcastle asset. So we pop back up to the Palace against Arsenal game. This game could go either way because both teams have got nothing to play for, in my opinion, unless Arsenal want to go for like the 3rd tier Europa competition. But I'm not sure they'll be big fans of that. But it could be an entertaining open game. I can see both teams scoring, so it makes the attacking assets in this game quite appealing. But the downside of Crystal Palace if they play Liverpool in the last game as well. So you've got like an Eze or Zaha, definitely play them against Arsenal. I think Zaha has got a decent record against Arsenal. He always seems to do well against them. And if you've got Arsenal players, Arsenal's fixtures aren't the worst, the last 2 fixtures, but it depends if you can predict who's going to play. I wouldn't recommend taking a punt on Aubameyang. Lacazette maybe going for that, because I could see, like I said, it being quite an open game and just going for it. They've got nothing to play for at the end of the season. They may as well make some entertaining games. Kind of like what the Newcastle City game was. I could hopefully see something like that, but you're never sure at this stage of the season. There could be tiredness as well. It's been a long season. But definitely attacking assets in that game. I do fancy Palace to score, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend Arsenal defenders. If you want to put a Leno or a Holding in there, if you've got them in there, you could go for it, but I do fancy both teams to score. Palace haven't looked too bad going forward in the last few games. They did Villa over in the last game. Even Mitchell getting on the score sheet. I'm not going to recommend Mitchell, but he's had flashes this season, being one of the cheapest defenders in the game. So he did well the last game week. But yeah, definitely attacking assets in that game. So then the final fixture got West Brom against West Ham. So I feel if West Ham had won the last game, I would have been all in West Ham assets. I'm a bit conflicted now. I still say West Ham assets are decent to have, but I feel like Champions League hope is gone now, and will they still have that motivation? Really, they should have, because we can still go for Europa. So I still expect West Ham to be decent this game, but I feel like Lingard and that have gone a bit off the boil. I still like the look of Antonio. If you're looking for a striker, Antonio is probably your best bet to be bringing in, because their last 2 fixtures are pretty decent as well. Alongside Liverpool, they've probably got the best fixtures. Well, I'd say, and maybe Leeds, Liverpool, West Ham and Leeds, out of the last 2 game weeks, have got the best fixtures. Maybe even a Newcastle in there. So if you're playing the fixtures, West Ham is still a good team to be going for. Like I said, if you're trying to get rid of any Garnacho, Antonio is probably a good switch to go to for only a few, I think it's about 0.3 difference, not too much, but it's still decent shouts. West Ham. Only issue with the defence is West Brom can grab a goal, but at this point in the season, you've got to take bets on someone to get a clean sheet. And as you've seen for FPL this season, some of the defenders can get the highest points. So if you pick the right defender like Kufal or a Cresswell, it can go well for you. And this is one of them games where it could actually go well for West Ham. So even though they'll probably have disappointment for Champions League, I feel like they could go for the bounce back and do quite well. So if I just give a summary of all the fixtures, I know we've gone quite quickly through them, but still managed to fill a good 15-20 minutes as usual. So United for this game week, I'd probably even considering transferring in like a Greenwood or someone to try and maximise that fixture, even a defender. But then you need to bear in mind they won't play the week after. In my head, they won't. So make sure you've got a strong bench to cover next week. Southampton, Leeds, attacking assets. I'd be leaning more towards Leeds. I'll skip past these because I don't add much value until you get maybe Newcastle if you want a differential punt, even an Everton if you want to try a differential with like a Sigurdsson because he could turn up trumps from a few set pieces. And I know he only played 45 minutes in the last game, so he could play 90 minutes in this one. Spurs, keep on your normal assets. Palace, Arsenal, difficult to predict. Kind of Palace, you know who your attacking assets are going to be. So there's more set in there, but I won't be bringing them in. And then as I said on the bottom two, Liverpool and West Ham, I'd be prioritising getting them in along with Leeds because their last two fixtures are pretty good. So it's time to get back on that, especially like the Leeds bandwagon, maybe West Ham to a certain extent, to try and maximise for the last two game weeks. So we quickly talk about captaincy as well. The Bruno just jumps out at me straight away with that top fixture because I think Fulham are just got to be preparing for next season. United need to put on a good performance. It's not been good the last few weeks, and this is their proper rehearsal for the Europa League final. Different kind of opposition, but they need to put in a good performance and get in a good rhythm ready for that. So I'll be looking at Bruno, and I think I'm skipping. I think Bruno, and the Liverpool asset are just two standout ones. So Bruno and Salah, I'd expect to be the top two captaincy picks this week. If you want to go for the standout option, also mentioning Kane would probably be third as well. But if you're looking for a differential and a cheaper option, I wouldn't mind like a Rafinha would be a decent shout for Leeds. Newcastle I won't be captaining. I don't think you'd take that much of a punt on a Newcastle athlete. And if you feel a bit fruity, go for a West Ham, but I'd probably be judging what your mini league rivals are playing. If they've got a Bruno and a Kane in the team, captain Salah, try and maximise your potential to jump up their mini leagues what you can at the end of the season, and hopefully you can get back and win the league over the last two game weeks. Will be tough, but we can hopefully do it, and we'll see how it goes for all of us. But that gives us what we need for game week 37. I apologise for it being a quick one, and it's a very quick turnaround for this game week. And also game week 38 is actually at the weekend, so we're going to have to probably try a video either Wednesday night or Thursday ready for the next deadline, which will be on Sunday because all the games are on Sunday. And then our FPL season will be done for this year. So we're right at the end, and we just need to push on these last two game weeks. So I hope this has helped. If you need any help, Twitter, join in the live streams on Twitch, or contact me in the comments, and I'm always willing to help however you need that. So we will see you for the next game week's video, which will be later on in the week. Like I said, it'll probably be up on Thursday at some stage, but if you want to keep track on when the videos will be live, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on, and you'll always know when they're there, or just check us out on Twitter as well and you'll see them on there. But until the next one, have a good evening everyone, and good night.